Some time ago, um, I read something, or it was a video, where someone said um, a good, educated person should be able to act like a lawyer. That is, you should be able to be either a defense attorney or a prosecutor in any one case. And in fact, um, a good lawyer should be able to prosecute the same case that they defend. In other words, you should be able to make an argument for and against any particular, let's go with concept. It's just being professional and, drop the idea of being a lawyer. If you're an educated person, you should be able to go for a concept and against the same concept. A good argument for and against the same thing. Why? Because if you are not attached to the concept, you should be able to say what's good about it and what's bad about it. And you should be able to look for problems in each of the arguments where you could keep arguing. Why do you want to do this? It's simply to become not attached to concepts. Being attached to a concept would be a person who says, I'm only going to be for this particular concept. I'm not going to argue against it. It's my truth. Even if it's your truth, you should be able to argue against it with your intelligence. Now, after you've made your argument, maybe you still feel, well, it still comes out that, me saying this is a truth is the way I feel about it. Then you're being the judge. But you have to give an honest effort. And that's basically what attorneys have to do when, the client walks in to their office and says, I need a lawyer. And even when you hear their story and you go, sure sounds like this particular client is guilty, you as a lawyer have an obligation to prepare the best defense for that person, even if they are guilty and you feel like they're guilty, because the person needs someone to defend them in the court of law, and it's your job. So you have to hold your nose and maybe defend a murderer. Maybe a murderer who was accused of killing a child. And people need to understand that that's what attorneys are paid to do, and not hold that, you, Mr. Attorney, are defending a child murderer and then, say, you're basically a demonic. No, that's not the way the legal system works. The legal system is the legal system. And you have to be able to separate the attorney from what the job is and the stands that the attorney is arguing pro and against. And it's the same for you as an intellectual individual. You should be able to do this. And if you can't, then you are very much caught up in emotion. You are becoming emotionally attached to one side or the other. Is there a universal truth? That's not the question. The question is, you prepare the argument for and against. Now that is your lead up to me giving the opposite tack to my previous video. In my previous video, I said quite a bit of the time I've been saying that you, Mr. Listener, are a spot of awareness right here, and you are surrounded by a mind that presents to you, Mr. Awareness, the state of the body, the state of the world. But you as awareness, anyway, go listen to my last talk. Okay, are you back? Okay, now we're going to go the other way. So we're going to argue that there is not a separate awareness from the mind, and that you as a combined combined mind awareness unity can change your reality using various techniques from, you know, pulling on a lever with your physical arm to raising your vibration by meditating. We're going to give you the argument that the idea that the feeling that the awareness up here is separate from mind is an artifact of the human brain. That is, that we know that the brain has different parts that do different things. There's everything from the brainstem, which is way down here, which looks after things like your heartbeat and your respiration, to up here, the prefrontal cortex, and that these things are considered to be higher mind. That's the ability to juggle these two things that I'm talking about, these two arguments. It's done up here, but there's parts of the brain back here that are like equivalent, or the cerebellum, which have to do with movements of the body. So if you were like a floor gymnast, your incredible abilities to move the body is because you've got a very good cerebellum that's been well trained. Other parts of the brain, and anyway, if you go and you were to Google the human brain and look at all the different parts and look at all the definitions of what the different parts do, that's what they tell you in the scientific literature, that different parts of the brain do different things, and therefore, if there's one part of the brain that is giving you the sense of awareness, then there's a part of the brain that does that, and there's other parts of the brain that are involved perhaps with speaking. And it's simply because the brain is not one thing, it's a multitude of different parts that are specialized to do different things that give you an illusion of simply being awareness when you're meditating. But it's because the human brain is an incredible instrument, and it's separated the different functions that it does into different parts of the brain, that you can, in meditation, seem to be simply awareness, watching the rest of it go. But everyone knows that a human body is one thing with many different organs in it. But it is always considered to be a human, the whole thing together. And if someone is horribly maimed in battle or something and loses their arms and their legs, they're still considered to be human. You can lose an eye or an ear. You can lose everything. But you're still well, not everything. You still have to be. Is it brain? Are you going to go with brain dead? Is that how you're going to define when the person stops being human? Well, it was human. But I want to continually remind you that, if we pulled out a human heart and we set it up on life support, we wouldn't consider a human heart by itself to be a human. And so the logic that I presented in the previous argument, which is basically something you find through sitting quietly and meditating and watching the mind, it's just artifacts of the way that the human mind works, and it doesn't give any significant evidence that you're simply awareness. And what that leads to is the idea that somehow your spot of awareness behind your eyes back here, that would continue after the death of the physical human organism. In other words, it's an argument that once this brain is dead, um, you're dead too, and there is nothing that continues after the death of the brain. How are you going to prove that, baby? I'm going to end my argument on that because that seems to be another topic, and there's all kinds of information on there. But just to reiterate, this is my argument against my previous video, etc., etc.